You're faced in that sense with a terrible predicament if you're going to be a Zionist, and which is that you have to conquer the land that you say God gave it to you, that God gave you. And the conquest would be rationalized by the sufferings that you had received and the fact that you felt yourself divinely entitled to it. The Zionist movement goes back really to the beginnings of the 19th century, but it was only adopted by Jews out of a conflict and a crisis that they had towards the close of the 19th century. And that set forth for the Jews a choice, which was to develop a nationalism for themselves. It wasn't the only choice. I mean, a lot of other Jews decided to become very pious and just go to the religious traditions, or they decided to go westward and became very, very important in the history of United States immigration. Or they became very much involved with Marxist and socialist movements. But there was this also fourth impulse, which was to become the bearer of an idea that they had to develop their nationalism. Ben-Gurion, later Moshe Dayan, who was, his chief of staff and the like, said, listen, if I were Arab, I would do everything possible to kick out the Jews, but I'm a Jew, and we have this destiny, and we're going to take this country over. The early Zionists were interested in this, and they sent a couple of scouts to study the situation, and they cabled back in crypto language, but it was unmistakable, the following message that the bride is beautiful, but she is married to another man. And the bride being the land that they saw for themselves, and the marriage being the brute fact that there were other people living there who had in fact inhabited that land. In fact, these people whom we call Palestinians had to some degree inhabited it ever since the destruction of the Jewish temple back in 70 AD. And they're probably the descendants of the original Jews. Whereas the Jews who came at the end of the 19th century and through the 20th century were mainly Jews who developed in Eastern Europe or Russian territory, such as my own family, called the Ashkenazim Jews. And we certainly had the religion, but there was no actual authentic national rootedness. And to take it over, it required ethnic cleansing. It's built into the logic. It's an iron necessity. It can wax, it can wane, it can take legal forms, it can take administrative forms, it can take economic forms. And then, of course, in 1947 and 48, it took terroristic and military forms and became the great Nakba, which is the catastrophe of Palestinian existence, when 800,000 Palestinians were violently expelled, 531 villages were destroyed, the memory of those villages was erased, and the like. So that's the foundational event, which happens to have been a crime, because it's a crime to take somebody else's land, and that's the essence of the matter.